Hello, everyone. We are here with another upgraded setup, which has been cool. We're also here because I did an oopsie, and I forgot that the 3-year anniversary of Your Hero Academia had come about. So we're kind of trying to make up on this one. So we're going to release this one, and then I'm going to release another video later this week to keep up with the usual schedule. So I apologize in advance if this seems a little bit hectic, but that is my bad entirely. So for the 3-year anniversary, we're gonna start off by getting to these reviews. Some people put a review for both chapters that I've released recently, and then some people it was just the most recent one. So we might get a double in there somewhere, but let's see what everybody had to say about the aftermath of Kurai's death in regards to the more distant members that he knew.
All right, so we have Atomical. Every time you succeed, every time.
Pat.
Once again, I am left feeling just a little hollow and a tiny bit sick.
Ooh, that's
Ouch.
Ooh.
So how do you feel now that you consistently make this reader sick?
I don't know how to feel about that.
I'm just kidding.
I'm like, I want people to feel things, but I don't want them to be sick about it. Uh-oh.
Well, thank you, Atomical, as
Thank
always.
you. Yes. Thank you for the review.
Last Robin. Well written as usual.
Thank
I don't
you.
have a lot to say today. It's natural covering people mourning.
Okay.
I'm guessing you have plans for Mina's brothers because I don't see their relevance right now.
I do have some plans down the line, yes.
Mataris Jelly. He just can't write poetry. Ha 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 ha.
At least when I write haikus, I don't end them with just a couple of laughs and call that good.
He's way better at haikus than I am, so it's fine. I've never been able to, I can't. You're better at poetry than I am, so.
You just don't like it.
I just think poetry is asinine. Sorry.
Let's see. All right. I'm going to cover Silver
Okay,
4700
go for it.
here.
I'm going to drink my tea.
Go for it. All right. Silver 4700 says, so I have a lot. So this is regarding the chapter where Shuken and Akuduri's flashbacks were covered. So I have a lot to say about this chapter, but before that, Akuduri hangs up with Class 1A. On the phone. Get him on the phone. I want him on the phone right now! Shuken, but he's dead. My quirk will literally let me design whatever the plot needs to, so I'm building a phone to the other side. Later with a phone ringing by Kurai. Kurai, oh, hold on, Dad, I gotta take this. Hello? What did you do? How were you able to call me? What did you do? Alright, but you can't get mad at me. What did you do? Okay, first, I was minding my own business. Bullshit! I was! And what exactly happened whilst you were minding your own business? So I was just chillaxing on the island like a baller. Then all of a sudden these schmuck villains kicked down the metaphorical door. One of them yelled out, "Get on your knees!" To which I responded with, "I'm not your mother last night!" And they took exception to that. But you know how that song and dance goes. It just so happened that I had to take them all down with me. All but one of them. And what happened to the last one? Taken down at the start like a loser. Silver lining? I can see Dad now.
I'm glad you took that because I wouldn't have read it as well. I'm like over here doing spit takes.
Oh, man. Let's see. Anyways, on with the chapter itself. I'll start with the criticisms and then with the positives. So I know he wrote this chapter, not this chapter, this review late at night. So I think he was a little cranky when he wrote it.
Okay.
So I'm going to take this with a grain of salt.
Okay.
First and foremost, there were way too many flashbacks. Like an inordinate amount of flashbacks. More flashbacks than an average D&D player has dice.
Oh.
Ouch! That was harsh. Okay, all right. Moving on. That's saying something. Yeah, it's saying something.
Yeah, we know some serious dice collectors.
We do. Like, one of my friends, literally has, these metal encased die.
Oh my god.
It's ridiculous. Like, he has to roll them, on a blanket on the table so he doesn't, scratch up his table.
Oh my goodness.
Because he's just that extra with his dice. Some of those flashbacks were cool and really worked. Shuken relating with them when his own dad died and when the brothers were designing the hero costume. They worked. They showed both an emotional weight as well as emotional levity that improved the emotional weight. but I felt there were way too many pointless things happening and too many flashbacks. Watching the sports festival, Kurai getting his first big hospitalization. I'd even make a case for the USJ attack, since all that did was introduce Akuduri to Mina and the class, and in a chapter all about processing emotional weight. That felt like something that could have been literally anywhere else to me. I don't know. I think my experience has been when someone has died is that my first tendency is to think back on the times that I did have with them, especially the times that were important to me. So for the characters, I felt that this was the best place to stick some of those flashbacks. Let's see. I'm not asking for nonstop action every other chapter, but every time I get to a new blank time later, I groaned. At one point, I just got bored of the flashbacks and dropped the chapter entirely because I wanted to know what some of the current mindsets and repercussions would be. Well, you probably like the next chapter better then. You did have those, obviously, but it just felt like a chore to either get there or to get through the chapter. And it was just because these flashback events could have been literally anywhere else prior in the story. Yeah, they could have been anywhere else in the story, but I don't think they would have had the same impact as when people are... how do I put this? It's like when you remember... When someone's gone and you're trying to remember those important times that you have with them, it's like trying to... It's like, as illogical as it is, people try to go back and get some of that time in with their loved ones again.
Cue the swing and sad flute music.
Oh my goodness.
Just kidding. It's not like that. No,
I'm not that bad. That swing gets more screen time than 1010.
At least you were able to make it fresh flashbacks and not the same exact
Yeah.
flashback.
Like, there were some add-ons to some of the flashbacks that had already happened, but nothing that I covered was a retread. Yeah. Let's see. Second, and in a lighter criticism, this might just be me, honestly, but in a story where there's already so many characters to keep track of, original and otherwise, I genuinely forgot that Shuken and Kurai's cousin family existed. I liked what you did with them in this chapter, and while it was really emotional, I genuinely couldn't feel truly stretched because, again, there are other characters that I completely forgot about. I know you introduced them and had them every so often in previous chapters, but again, it's getting to the point where there's just so much to keep track of. In this similar vein, it's kind of the same with Mina's family in the upcoming chapter, based on the next time. I see why it's there, and people are three-dimensional with families and stuff, but for me, it's getting to the point where I see their names, I just kind of glaze through their interactions because with how many other characters there already are, I kind of don't care about the new-ish guys. Maybe that's just me, but I wanted to throw that out there. I'm sure you're not the only person who has that opinion. I just, like, how do I put it? I wanted to do these chapters to show that the story goes beyond and affects things that are outside of Class A.
Yeah, because
like, it can't be all about them.
And I feel like the end of the chapter kind of tied everything together.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I think I think I can go both ways, because when you were writing it, I was like, wait a minute, another one? Another one? Okay. But it,
I mean, Shuken and Sakura weren't characters that were just brand new off the cuff.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Mina's brothers, that's a little different, but I didn't spend nearly as much time on their flashbacks.
But I think the way that you did it, for me at least by the end, it makes sense. Okay. It's like kind of the new Mandalorian, like, well, not new, but the Mandalorian episode was like, oh, Mandalorian's not in a show at all. It's just about this doctor who's getting rehabilitated and double-crossed. Okay. Oh, my own show. I only showed up for the last 30 seconds. First time.
He was like the last 10, 15 minutes, I want to say, of that episode. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Okay. Now on to the good stuff. He's got like one half of a paragraph. Man. I mentioned this in the criticisms, but I really like the emotional weight of some of the memories. Again, the dead father and costume designing being most prominent. I also really like Akuduri's message from Kai, as well as most of the present-day scenes that Akuduri was in. If I'm being honest, it's hard for me to elaborate on what I really like, despite being really good on elaborating what I dislike, and I kind of apologize for that.
Kinda apologize.
That doesn't seem very heartfelt. Also, if anything, this chapter confirmed that the mysterious girl is 100% a Lucina-esque time traveler. Akuduri's quirk Deus Ex Machina is added again. Anyways, I need to sleep. Hope you have a good one, Silver.
Well, thank you for your review.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for your review. I'll take the criticisms.
All right. Light Hero Kaiser is next.
Yes.
Most interesting, great chapter, mate. Can't wait for more. Keep up the good work. Kaito, covered in cuts and has a black eye. Well, next chapter will be interesting. Winces in pain. Like,
should you really be talking after your jaw got broken in your fight with Ren? I did warn you.
Shut up.
Blade Hero Light and Bow Hero Impact signing out.
Well, thank you, Light Hero
Thank
Kaiser.
you. Thanks, Kaiser.
Sounds like
Next
Light
is...
and Kaito got into a mess. All right, Joe Clone. Man, what a beautiful shift in perspective to many people Kudai has affected. Mina's brothers, we haven't seen them before, but I think we'll be seeing them again soon. Mako's lawyering skills would definitely come in handy if they let him on one particular case I'm thinking about.
You're not wrong.
Endeavor, for how brief it was, shows just how much this is tearing him away from the Shoto even more. First mention of Toya too, and knowing what we know now in the show at this point, yeesh, that's heavy. Fat Gum and Sun Eater were the most wholesome and sad pair to have in that kind of subject between them. The last question ate whatever I hope I had of a positive response. Until we...
Yeah, I don't know how you're supposed to get a positive response out of that.
Until we got Gang Orca, that is. Having All Might tell him felt poignant for both of them, having Kai as a protege for different parts of his career. He saw Kai in action and was critical of him when he wanted him to learn. Just imagining how Kai inspired him to turn to the point of shedding tears for his death was powerfully moving.
Well, thank you.
I like that Ingenium was the spearhead for backlash against the BSC.
The Public Safety Commission,
Yeah. I kind of wish we would get an example of what it looks like for those heroes to speak out about this issue.
I may be able to get to that at some point. I think I will. I think I will be able to get to that at some point. Not in the immediate future, but I think I can I can get that in. I can get that in at some point.
There's the girl again. She disappeared just as soon as we saw her, though. Curious. Is that her in the preview? Wouldn't be surprised.
That is her in the preview.
That's all I got this time. Happy anniversary to Your Hero Academia.
Yeah, man. Oh, man. The story's dude, I'm still having so much fun with the story.
Thank you, Joe Clone. And then Silver 4700.
I'll go ahead and take this one again. I don't have any references for this chapter, if I'm being honest. So let's just right to it, shall we? You disappoint me, man. You're supposed to have a reference for every single chapter that I release. You're supposed to have some kind of abridged episode reference. How dare you, sir? First, I won't harp on this since I mentioned it in length during the last chapter. However, there are more ways than one to convey emotional and personal attachment aside from flashbacks. Yeah, I harped on it enough myself in regards to your last chapter review, so I'll move on as well. Let's see. That said, the two flashbacks you did have were well executed. Mainly the second one, with more of a complete outside view looking into Kai's battle with the Shadow Nomu. I really like that and all the people's reactions. The first flashback may be a bit long, but that's my opinion, and I could very well be wrong. Dealing with a similar issue in a personal project I'm working on. I think you meant to say.
Cool.
Yeah, man. I just tried to take moments that I thought would be formative for these characters, and tried to apply them as best as I could. I'm sure you guys got this in the last podcast, but I really enjoyed redoing Kudai's fight against the Shadow Nomu from an outside perspective. Largely because I realized, wait a minute, this fight didn't take very long. It just felt that way. Let's see. Second, I absolutely love how you showed everyone else and their response/reactions to Kai's death. Most notably Gang Orca and even Endeavor. Those moments were the best, if I'm being honest. Really like the kids and Fat Gum's moment too. I'm glad. Yeah. Okay. So after reading his first review, I was like, I think he'll like this more recent chapter because
I was thinking that
there was the good portion of the chapter was flashbacks, but a pretty decent chunk of it was also covering current events and how people are reacting to what happened.
And I think I was mixed up with what chapter we were doing. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see. Lastly, we have a new Mataris entering our fold. Female Mataris from the future. Keep this up and you'll have enough Matarises to make Organization 13 and create the 13 Seekers of Darkness. Or Edge, whichever works. In which case, I'll have to make the 7 pure hearts of unfinished projects to counteract you. Who knows? Organization 13 are the bad guys in Kingdom Hearts.
Got it.
As I understand it. Anyways, bit of a shorter review, but I must bid you and Becca adieu. Well, thanks everybody for your reviews. Sorry again, I didn't give proper heads up that we were going to be filming a podcast earlier this coming week. I honestly biffed it.
No worries.
It's not like I had my tub break or anything and have to fix that.
We were sitting there for like 2 hours trying to figure out how to fix it, and then we had to turn off the water for the whole house at like midnight to get.
And then I spent like 5 hours fixing it today, and I actually finally fixed it.
Yes, I'm so thankful.
Thank goodness.
We have a working tub. Yay!
Yeah. All right, well, enough of me griping about homeowner issues. I will go ahead and let you guys get on with the chapter. So we'll be back here in a little while.
I hear the rain start to fall as it turns to a pour. We're here again in this storm, but we've been here before. I see the street signs warning, telling me that I have no other place I could go. Feel like I'm stuck in motion, can't find balance. I'm living in a vertigo. Everything is nothing like before. I've tried to hold it together, clinging on to memories I swore that I could hang on forever. But the end of the road wasn't far. I let go and I suddenly woke in my bed. Rub the haze from my eyes. I've always hated goodbyes.
Paying respect. Kurdai's funeral was set to be held at UA as soon as his body was transported home, so that his loved ones back on the mainland would be able to attend the event. However, the residents of Naboo also wished to pay their respects, so the teachers and students of UA agreed to hold a memorial service for the boy the night before they were to leave the island. His body was being preserved by the quirk of a resident, whose power allowed her to halt the aging process of anything inanimate. Since Kurdai's body and cells were all dead by this point, apparently his corpse was among the things that she could affect. His classmates were not required to attend the memorial service since there would be a proper funeral later on, and the professors were unsure how their charges would handle such an event twice over. Once it was noted that they would be permitted to speak in their friend's honor if they so desired, and since his family would mostly be present for his burial, some of the other heroes decided this would be their best chance to say something for him. In the end, the entirety of the class decided to attend. After all that Kurdai had done, paying their respects just once didn't seem like it would be enough. Yajirozu had created clothes for everyone in their class that didn't have an appropriate outfit for a mourning period, so when they were all ready to go, the heroes had each donned some shade of black or another. So the night before they were to head back for the mainland, the whole island's population made the trek to the temple ruins in order to gather in the place where Kurdai had breathed his last. The weather was pleasant as it always was on Naboo, with hardly a cloud in sight and a sky full of stars, though they seemed just a bit dimmer than they normally did during the late evening, as if even the heavens had decided to mourn with them. When they reached the spot, Class 1A was surprised to see a polished stone sculpture in Kai's likeness being lit by a handful of torches that had been planted in the ground around it. Some of the construction teams put this together for him, the mayor explained to the staring teenagers. We know it's not the prettiest job, but the boys gave it their best. We thought it best if we put it here so he can keep watching over us, as it were. It's perfect, Mr. Mayor, Edith said gratefully with a deep bow to the older man. I know I speak for my class when I say that this honors our friend's sacrifice to its fullest. You have our deepest gratitude for this. It was the least we could do. With a bow of his own, the mayor stepped back to join the head of the column that had followed the heroes out to the ruins. For a moment, all was silent among the people, save for the sounds of the wind brushing through the mountain and the waves washing the beach down below. When he felt that the silence had gone on for long enough, Aizawa stirred and moved to stand in front of the statue before he surprised everyone by kneeling in front of the stone with his head bowed. You were a foolish hero, Hikari, they heard him say. Before any of his students could react with outrage, he added, but you were a hero regardless. Others whom I've taught should do so well to look inevitable death in the face and confront it with the resolve you did. I hope that you're resting easy. You earned it. With that, he stood up and moved away, his eyes cast toward the ground with his face buried in a scarf, making it all but impossible for anyone else to read his expression. This was how he normally walked, but today he was just a little slower in his movements, and what little was visible of his eyes seemed to be afflicted with genuine sorrow. Before another long pause could ensue, one of Kurai's classmates stepped up to the stand in front of the statue, though unlike their teacher, he did not kneel. Rather, Kirishima turned around to look at the crowd of hundreds of people and drew in a deep breath. Kai wasn't just any hero, he began, his words loud enough to be heard by most of the people in attendance. He was everything that I want to be, not just as a hero, but as a man. He was a hard worker, a great classmate, and an even better friend. He never gave up, even under what most people could call the worst possible situations. And when it was over, he was always the first person to laugh about it. The redhead smiled through the first hint of tears in his eyes as he added, I remember the day after he lost his arm. He kept asking for high fives, and he did it with the straightest face. It made me and a bunch of us laugh, which we really needed back then. In spite of themselves, several of his classmates were chuckling quietly among themselves, or at least smiling at the memory. Kirishima's face became more somber as he went on to say, I know he was dealing with a lot underneath those smiles and laughter, more than anyone should ever have to handle on their own. But to him, giving his friends the time to smile and laugh was more important than his own happiness, and I'd like to think that he had plenty of that surrounding him too. The boy clenched his rock-hard fist and slammed it to his breast before he concluded, Kai was my hero, and I'm proud to say that Kurai Hogosho was my friend. From now on, whenever I see someone in need, I'm going to do my best to remember how he made sure that others could laugh along with him. As he stepped away, he was passed by Ida, who turned around to address his comrades and the islanders while saying, Well spoken, Kirishima. I've known Kurai the longest, and while we didn't always get along, I can safely say that I have always admired the principles and integrity that he maintained, while he strove to become the best hero that he could have possibly been. He was a diligent student, hero, friend, and brother, always remembering that he fought for a picture so much bigger than himself. I honestly believe that he was never able to see a picture with just himself in it, because there was always someone else on his mind whenever he acted as a hero. I hope that as I work toward becoming a hero myself, that I will be able to keep my eyes wide open like he did. I will miss him dearly, but I will not let his sacrifice for us be in vain. It was at this point he bowed to the statue and moved to join his classmates, his glasses having been removed so he could wipe away the moisture running down his face. While Izuku and Ochako moved to comfort their friend, Todoroki took his turn to speak, his normally stone-faced expression having given way to a look of profound sadness that surprised his friends. Still, they supposed if there was ever a day for him to break character, this would be it. I'm not one for big speeches, so I'll keep this brief, he began, looking down at his left hand as he did. He quickly brought his heterochromic gaze back up to the quiet crowd while saying, Hikari was one of my best friends, and I'll miss him more than I thought it was possible to miss a person. He helped me overcome so much by showing his own determination to succeed in spite of astronomical odds that were stacked against him. This will probably surprise many of you, but the truth is that I've been deprived of a lot growing up the way that I did. But I've also never really felt a sense of loss like this one. It's an experience that I hope never befalls any of us ever again, and I'll do what I can to make sure it doesn't happen. I suppose all I can really say in the way of making that happen is that, like the others, I'll keep Hikari in my heart as I continue my journey to become a hero. Next to speak was Ochako, who could barely keep her eyes dry as she looked up at the statue of her dead friend. Kurai always had a way of bringing the truth out of you, she sniffled. Maybe that's because he always made it easy for others to see what he was feeling when it mattered. I always felt like I could talk to him about anything, and if I just needed someone to listen, he'd lend an ear, and when I needed some advice, he had plenty to give, when I didn't realize that I needed it myself. We've lost a great friend, and I'll miss him so much. She broke down in front of the statue, crying as Izuku and Ida went to console her as best they could, while also moving her away so that she could try to recover outside of everyone's line of sight. In an attempt to draw attention away from the crying girl, Yayorozu took her turn at the place beneath Kai's statue that had unofficially become the place to farewell the boy with their words of respect. What always impressed me the most about Hikari was not his power or his instincts as a Hero Course student, she said while dabbing at her eyes. I learned after we had all been accepted into the Hero Course that he had chosen to forego his chance to get in on recommendations, and instead chose to take the standardized test, which significantly decreased his chances of being accepted into our academy. I had originally been furious with him, thinking that he was arrogant for wasting such an opportunity that many would have given everything to have. But as I went on to learn more about him and his ideals, I realized it was not arrogance that had driven him to compete in the standardized tests. Far from it. He simply wanted to prove that he had earned his place at the Hero Academia by his own efforts, and not because of who he was related to.
a trait that I was envious of and even admonished him for, only for me to realize that I possessed the very arrogance that I was accusing him of. I was ashamed of myself, and even began to question my place at our school, but Hikari told me that I had done nothing that shamed me. He said that even if we had different methods of achieving our goals, that was the way it should be, because we were different people. I will forever be grateful to him for reminding me that there are many different kinds of heroes in this world, and confirming to me that my path was not an invalid one. Even so, I will remember that his path was of the highest integrity, and that anyone who seeks the title of hero should aspire to be like him. Done with her piece, she now stepped away, moving to help calm Ochako, who was still trying to ease her body's quaking. The next speaker was no small surprise, but the attendants remained quiet as they watched Blake bow to the statue before turning to address all of them. Hikari was the kindest person I've ever known. She began without preamble, her voice quavering as she spoke. I haven't known him as long as most of my classmates, and I didn't know him nearly as well as those who have already spoken, but I already miss him enough to know that I need to say some things. There was a time when I was going to walk away from being a hero because of a mistake I made, but he wouldn't let me do it. He made it clear that quitting would be the real mistake because I haven't gotten to where I am on my own. I owe it to the people who supported my decision to become a hero, and now I owe it to the guy who gave his life to protect ours. She drew in a deep breath while tears leaked out of her golden eyes before adding, I learned from Hikari to never take anything that someone does for you for granted, whether it's something as small as taking the time to smile at your friend to brighten their day or saving their life no matter the cost to you. He taught me that you can't keep your friends close enough because you never know when they might be taken from your life, so just appreciate all of it as much as you can for as long as you can. She turned to look back over her shoulder and up at the statue before she finished in a softer tone. Thank you, Kurai, for everything you did and for everything you taught me. Her classmates moved to gather her into a group hug as soon as she rejoined the crowd, many of whom by this point had knelt in the grass and dirt out of respect for the dead hero and the words of his friends. Many of those same people were crying, but there was only one set of dry eyes among the members of Class 1A as their owner moved to stand and scowl at the statue with grit teeth. Before anyone could stop him, Bakugo muttered just loud enough for his classmates and teachers to hear the words, "You did right by your hero named Kai. That's more than most pros can say for themselves." He then kind of ruined his farewell to the boy by adding, "I hope you've got a good view from those clouds up there, because I want you to see it plain as day when I become the hero who surpassed everyone, even you." With that, he stomped off, ignoring the surprised looks of his classmates in favor of trudging by Izuku and grunting, "You're up, nerd." Yeah. The green-haired boy swallowed past the stone in his throat as best he could while he moved away from the crowd to look up at the statue of his dead friend, his legs feeling like they had been weighed down with lead. Seeing the cold, lifeless stone in place of Kurai's snarky smile made the knife lodged in his heart twist just a little deeper than it already had been. There's so much I want to say that I can't, he thought as his eyes burned and his vision became cloudy. I want to thank you for giving me another chance at becoming a hero, for entrusting me with your amazing powers and the will to use them against the dark forces of this world. I want to say how much I admired your strength of will to become a hero, even after learning about how your powers came to you and everything that happened to you because of that. I wish that the whole world could know the true depth of your bravery and self-sacrifice. He had informed All Might and Aizawa about his discovery that somehow Kurai's powers now resided in his body, following his talk with Bakugo at the school. He told his mentor the full story, but to his homeroom teacher and those unaware of One For All's unique properties, as well as being under the impression that Nine had stolen his powers during the final moments of the battle, he had fed a half-truth. He told them of the supposition that because Kurai had only ever given portions of his power to others, they didn't really know what might happen if he could manage to give up all of his strength to a single target. To them, it made sense that if Kurai had been aware of Izuku's quirk being stolen by Nine right before his death, he would certainly do everything in his power to make sure that his friend could continue on his journey to become a hero. Izuku hated lying to them after everything that had happened, even by omission, and he was seriously starting to question whether it was really necessary now that One For All no longer existed, and All For One had been revealed to the world, but he decided to keep it to himself for the time being. For now, he had more pressing matters to attend to. Izuku rubbed at his eyes as he tore them away from the stone replica of Kai, and turned to face the people of Nabu and his peers. Most of what can be said of Kurai has already been said, he told them, trying to make his voice as clear as he could in spite of the lump that simply would not dislodge itself. But I can still say that without him, I wouldn't be the hero I am now. The first day that we met, He saw that I had trouble controlling my powers, and without a second thought, he offered to help me, even knowing how much work we had in store for us as Hero Corps students. As time went on, we started to talk about the kind of future we were working to create with our actions, and we even decided to put together a hero team with a couple of others once we managed to go pro. He wasn't my first friend at UA, but... He paused and drew in a steadying breath as he remembered Kurai's last words to him before saying, "He was the only brother I ever needed, and I'll miss him so much." He broke down, the lump in his throat having swelled up too much for him to be able to articulate anything anymore. He soon felt a familiar lanky arm being placed on his shoulders, leading him away from the statue along with the words, "Well spoken, my boy. Just keep what you've said today in mind, and I know you'll live a life that honors him." Unable to speak, Izuku simply nodded as All Might continued to lead him away from the memorial. Everyone expected Mina to be the next, and likely final, person to speak, but when the spot was cleared, she made no move to take it. After a few seconds, she noticed the expectant looks being pointed her way and simply shook her head in the negative, eyes downcast. Needless to say, there were those among them who were surprised that she wouldn't have something to say, but there were enough of them who understood that it was still too fresh for her to talk about it, especially in front of a crowd of people they barely knew, so they kept the others from pressing the matter. Instead, Katsuma and Mahiro, along with their dad, came walking up with a large wreath of wildflowers that the two children had spent the day weaving together. They laid the arrangement at the base of the statue and knelt before it, their heads briefly bowed in prayer for their hero in the afterlife before they stood up and turned to face the onlookers. They seemed hesitant, but a quiet word from their father encouraged Mahiro to step up and say, "Kai was a great hero, and I'm going to make sure that everyone remembers that no matter how much time passes. He was strong and encouraging like a hero should be, so I'll remember him." Her lip was trembling, but she stayed standing at her father's side, who gave her an approving smile. Katsuma spoke next, though he was already crying, so it was a little hard to make out the words of the soft-spoken child. "Mr. Kai, he told me that even I could be a hero," he managed to get out. "He said that powers we have don't matter as long as we stand up to the bad guys when they come. And that's just what he did. It didn't matter that the villain was super strong and scary. He faced him anyway. So I'm going to be a hero just like him someday. I'll get even stronger so that I can stand up to the bad guys and keep Daddy and Mahiro safe." He looked over his shoulder at the statue as he also said, "And when I do get there, I'll be able to come back to this place and stand tall, so I can show him that it was worth it to save us." Keeping his watering gaze fixed up on the statue, he finished, "I promise, Mr. Kai, I'll grow up to protect what you saved." The statue, of course, made no reply, but in that moment, the attendants could have sworn that the stars above started to twinkle a little more brightly, regaining their normal level of luminosity. The traveler eyed the barrier surrounding UA High School, her eyes narrowed in concentration. "It's as ironclad as I remember," she thought with a sigh as she turned to walk away, having done all the reconnaissance that she could without acting suspicious for the day. Even disguised in civilian clothing, she knew that it wouldn't take a genius for whoever was in charge of monitoring security for the campus to recognize she wasn't a bystander admiring the architecture if she walked around the massive gated walls for hours on end. She was running out of time. In order for her plan to work, she needed to be on the campus in time for the funeral procession to begin, which was set to occur tomorrow morning. There was going to be an open casket memorial service for Kurai at the school, after which his body would be taken to the graveyard where his father and uncle were buried. He was being afforded a spot next to them, having died in the line of duty as a hero. In attendance for the burial would be the remnants of his family, a handful of his classmates, who would be allowed to leave campus for the day, and his teachers. While this was happening, the memorial service at UA would continue on in a less formal manner for those who wished to continue reminiscing about their fallen comrade. Once the burial group had returned, things would begin to wind down, and eventually the gathering would completely dissipate. The girl's mouth compressed into a thin line as she thought, "It'll be best if I can get to them before the open casket service even begins. But if they're not back yet, I don't see that happening. Not without something going really wrong." As she passed by an alleyway, her ears picked up on the sounds of muffled grunting and what seemed like 2 or 3 people struggling against a dumpster. This thought was confirmed when she stopped and listened harder in time for a voice to say, "Shut her up! The last thing we need is a pro coming along and ruining this!" Believe it or not, pros aren't what should concern you the most in your line of work. 2 men dressed in black with ski masks who were trying to keep a young woman from the nearby fast food joint tied down and gagged with a ratty cloth, looked up from their activity to see a girl cloaked in red with raven hair and golden brown eyes glaring at them. I will say, you have a lot of nerve to commit a crime less than 5 minutes away from the world's most esteemed hero school. Crap! One of them swore as he looked to his partner, who hadn't moved away from the suffocating woman. What do we do? Relax, she's probably just one of those student heroes from up the road. The apparent leader snorted. My quirk will make short work of her. Dude, have you seen what some of these guys can do? His partner asked as he started to back away, fear in his brown eyes. No way we could take her on if we was having trouble with Skimpy here. I wanted this chick alive. The leader shrugged as his fist transformed into living metal with spiked knuckle dusters. The do-gooder can serve as an example to her school that just because they got a big fancy wall, it ain't a safe world to be in once you call yourself a hero. You should pay attention to what people tell you. The girl in question replied, her tone unconcerned and unhurried. Like I said, a hero shouldn't worry you right now. See, heroes have to worry about their public image with every rescue and arrest that they make. As you're about to discover firsthand, that concern doesn't apply to me. There was a rush of wind and a flash of light that scattered garbage across the alleyway, and when it settled, the two thugs were unconscious and bleeding with over 100 broken bones between the two of them. The gagged woman looked up, suddenly terrified to see the girl with blood splattered on her hands, reaching down for her, causing her to try and scream and wriggle away again, only to have a firm grip applied to her shoulder while the girl locked eyes with her. I'm not going to hurt you, she assured the captive. Just stay still, I'll get you out of that. With a series of quick movements, the rags that had been used to tie the worker up were pulled apart, and the gag was removed, allowing the woman to breathe more easily. Thank you, she coughed as she rubbed her arms uncomfortably. I thought... Don't mention it, the raven-haired girl interrupted as she glanced over her shoulder. Do you need a hospital, miss? No, but... Then I'm calling in the heroes, she said as she stood up while holding the woman's phone. Not that she had any idea of how the mysterious girl had gotten it. I'd do it, but I don't have a phone, and I don't feel like explaining what just happened here. She hit a button on the device that triggered an automatic alert for any nearby agencies that a crime was taking place at the phone's location. Wait, are you some kind of vigilante? The worker asked as her rescuer began to walk away after depositing the phone on her lap. Why did you help me? You were in trouble, the girl replied over her shoulder. And I'm nobody. But what do I tell the police? The truth. You were being assaulted. A stranger comes out of nowhere and saves you. Then leaves without giving her name. There's cameras in the area that'll support your claim, even if they won't get a clear look at my face from these angles. But what do I call you? I won't tell, I promise. The girl glanced over her shoulders as she reached the end of the alley before answering, If you need to know, you can call me Lemillion. Then she was gone, and the woman she had saved was left with far more questions than when her rescuer had appeared. The following morning, the students of Class 1A were all dressed in the appropriate morning attire and sitting in the dim quiet of the common space, waiting for the teachers to come and get them so they could attend the official ceremony for their friend. They had returned from Nabu Island the previous evening, nearly all of them looking forward to having their own rooms again. Mina had actually roomed with Ochako, apparently unwilling to go back to either her or Kodai's empty rooms, nor did she wish to sleep alone. Ochako wasn't entirely sure that the pink girl had slept anyway, but she was so tired she hadn't even managed to try to stay awake with her morning friend. And when she woke, Mina was already downstairs in a black dress suit that Yaoyorozu had gifted her. The sky was overcast and snowing, lending an extra impact to the silence permeating the atmosphere. Many of the students could see Kodai laughing in the reflections of the windows as he pelted them with snowballs during the season's first snowfall. Others saw him rounding the corner to the fridge, on the hunt for one of his favorite orange sodas. Ida had come down first and turned on the lights to see him playing solo mode on Smash Bros. While waiting for the others to come down and give him a real challenge. Izuku had even passed him by on the open door to his vacant room, where he would no doubt be working on his arm in anticipation of a hard day of training. No one could even look at the Christmas tree in the corner of the room with a massive pile of gifts waiting for each of them, now knowing that one of those clusters was destined to remain unappreciated. Some had the thought that the gifts should go to Akarui so they wouldn't go to total waste, but no one had the courage to suggest it out loud, especially with Mina in the room. As the silence wore on, some of the students congregated in smaller groups and began to murmur quietly among themselves, trying desperately to escape the suffocating quiet that was beginning to deafen them. Some of them talked about Kodai, others about what school was going to look like during the coming semester, some just discussed adjusting to dorm life after living on Nabu for half a month. Of course, there were still those who weren't talking at all. Bakugo, Blake, and Todoroki had said nothing other than the last two greetings for their friends over tea and coffee, and Mina hadn't spoken more than 20 words since the class had listened to Kodai's farewell messages, though it seemed as if she planned to speak at the funeral later that day. It felt like hours before All Might and Aizawa showed up on their doorstep, with their homeroom teacher informing them that it was time to proceed to the gym, which was the only facility large enough to house everyone who wished to attend during the cold of winter. Ida and Yairozu led the way behind the two heroes, the vice representative holding a large flower arrangement in her arms that she had commissioned in honor of her friend. She wasn't the only one carrying a bouquet, but hers was admittedly the most impressive of the bunch. There would also be flowers to lay on the coffin that had been provided by the school, but of course, there were those who still wished to give their own offerings. It didn't take long for them to reach the gym structure, and when they did, the sounds of the murmuring crowds within drew their attention to the platform that had been provided for the event, where they could all see Kurai, grinning as he danced to the music show that they had created together for the school festival. Then the class's eyes dropped to see the small sea of black-clad students and faculty, all of them looking somber if not downright weepy. Feeling the burdens weighing them down suddenly double in their hearts, the weary students trudged onward, toward the stage where the coffin was already open. A large hologram of Kurai in his hero gear was shimmering, and a podium with a microphone had been set up. The gathering of people opened up to make way for the class, many of them murmuring their condolences as they passed. Most of the faces they passed were unfamiliar, but once they got to the front, there were many members from Class 1B, UA's Big Three, and Little Aerie, who was already crying quietly in Togata's arms. She had been told what had happened by Aizawa and Togata after the teacher had gotten home, and she had been distraught ever since. They would have told her sooner, but they feared that if she learned the truth, and Aizawa was not around to cancel out her powers, she might have accidentally rewound somebody out of existence. So far, her ability had not acted out, but the man was keeping a close eye on her regardless. As soon as they all filed into their appropriate spots, Nezu walked forward and clambered onto a stool that stood behind the podium, which would allow him to look out across the gymnasium and speak clearly into the mic. He cleared his throat and waited for the auditorium to fall completely quiet before saying, "I wish that I could bid you all a good morning, but that would be a lie. This is not the first time one of our students has met an untimely death at the hands of villainy, but that does not lessen its impact on us today. It is with great sorrow that I must say we are here in remembrance of Kurai Hikari Hogosha, also known as Kai, the guardian hero. He was a fine student who did our academy proud not only with his power, but also with his heart and actions. He acted with even more courage than many of the teachers of our final establishment, and certainly with the integrity of a hero that we strive to produce. He faced much adversity in his young life, and unfortunately not all of it came from outside of these walls. I remember receiving many petitions earlier in the year to have him ejected from the school, for a reason that was beyond his control, no less. I'm told that in spite of that fact, he never once complained or made a move to retaliate against his tormentors, and instead continued to work hard and persevere until he became a hero in his own right, and he did not stop there. He lived as a hero, and though it is sad to say, it should be noted that he died as a hero, saving the lives of hundreds, even knowing what could befall him." Glancing to his left, the white animal then said, "There are a few people who knew him well who will speak in his honor. All Might, if you would." Nobody spoke, but there were certainly stirrings of interest as the former number one hero stepped up to the podium, while Midnight took away the stool so that he could stand properly without obstruction. As soon as he was in place, the lanky man swept his eyes across the gym while saying, "Young Hikari was a great student, and it was my genuine honor to have had the chance to teach him, though if I'm being honest, I didn't have to do much more than point him in the right direction every now and again. What always stood out to me the most was his sense of honor, something that I feel is lacking in many people these days. There are many who have clear ideas about what is right and wrong, but Hikari always did what he did in a way that respected those who came before him, like his late uncle and his longtime friend Ingenium. He never wanted them to see him and be disappointed in what he had accomplished and how he had done it. He was a good kid and an honorable hero, and his sacrifice should never be forgotten. To that end, we are renaming Gym Gamma into Gym Kai, so that all who walk into these halls to train their powers in the pursuit of being heroes might remember the one who gave his life to secure a world where they could have a chance to become even half the hero he was." All Might sighed heavily before saying, "Rest in peace, young Hikari." With that, he walked to the left, where the coffin containing the body was, having been repaired and kept preserved with various quirks so that it would be presentable for the funeral. With his thin fingers, the former hero plucked up a white rose from a nearby table and laid it on the bottom half of the coffin, which was shut over the body's legs. Next to speak was Aizawa. Given that he had already said a few words at the memorial service on Nabu, his students had to wonder what he would say this time around. The weary-looking man began to speak as soon as he came within the range of the mic, sounding as tired as he looked. "The rising heroes of Japan have suffered a tremendous loss," he began, stunning the onlookers. After all, Aizawa never spoke highly about anyone, much less in public about one of his students. Undeterred by their reactions, the homeroom teacher went on to say, Hikari had the makings of a great pro. Talent, confidence, humility, and a desire to go above and beyond the call of duty. When he first came to my class, he showed a lot of promise, but I had no idea that beneath all of that potential was a will as strong as any I have ever seen, one that allowed him to endure more suffering, both body and mind, than any student I've ever had. He set the standard high for his generation, even without the events leading up to his final days. But I still encourage all of my students, as well as those outside of my class, to strive to be as devoted and selfless as he was. If you can do that, this world will truly become a better place for it. With that, he turned and walked away. He did not leave a flower on the coffin as he passed it by, though he did appear to say a few inaudible words over the body before he moved on. While that was happening, Gang Orca, who had been invited to the event as one of Kurai's instructors, stepped up to the podium to take his turn. It was hard to tell what the big man was thinking since his facial features were vastly different than the average person, but he seemed even more grave than normal. Hikari came to my agency as an intern following the sports festival, and I remember liking him well enough, he rumbled. But as the week went on, one thing stood out to me in particular, the fact that he took every criticism to heart and used it to improve himself. He never made the same mistake twice under my tutelage, and he helped to save even my life while we fought villains together. He showed an impressive level of restraint in a moment that would have proved to be too much to handle for even seasoned heroes, much less a juvenile one. While I am sad that his path has led him to this, I am glad to know that even at the end, he never stopped improving himself in pursuit of his goal to become a hero. And in my opinion, he was one of the greatest of our time. There was a lot of murmuring that echoed in the packed hall as the large hero walked away to make room for the next speaker, many of the students impressed with the regard that Gang Orca seemed to hold their late peer in. The quiet talk stopped as another large man took the stand, though this one was far more rotund than the previous hero, giving him a much more comical appearance. Kai and one of his classmates signed on for the work-study program under my tutelage, Fat Gum said with a friendly, yet still sad smile. I remember thinking how crazy it was that the hero prospect like him would have anything to learn from a guy like me, when he clearly could have been chumming it up with higher-ranking heroes. When I asked him about why he wanted to work for me, he answered that while I probably couldn't teach him as much as some of the other pros could, he felt that I could teach him what he really needed to know. So I taught him what I could, and he performed in all of his duties above what I would have expected from such a bright young man. Even when he got tangled up in the Yakuza business, I knew he would be all right, and even better, that he would do exactly what we needed him to do in order to shut down the Hisaikai, which he and his friends did. I wish that I'd had more time with him, but I know that I need to be content with the time we did have together. He looked upwards as he finished. Kai, buddy, I just want to say thanks for all that you did for the people counting on us. You did a lot of us real proud. As the hefty man walked away, he could be seen wiping at his large eyes. Next up was Kurai's aunt, Sakura, who was accompanied by Akadori on the left in his wheelchair and her son Shuken on the right. The woman was trembling a little bit as she unfolded a paper and looked down at it, seemingly hesitant to speak. When she opened or closed her mouth a few times without any sound coming out, Shuken leaned over and spoke something into her ear, which she nodded, and the two swapped places. Hello, Yue. The boy began, his voice unsteady but still coming through clearly through the delivery system. I'm Shuken, Kurai and Akadori's cousin, and I'll be speaking on behalf of his remaining family members. This is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, honestly. I've lost my dad, more recently my uncle, so I'd have thought that I would be more used to this stuff by now, but they never tell you that the more times you see your family members die, the harder it gets to see. The boy let out a dry chuckle and wiped his eyes before sniffling and saying, Sorry, I'll try to stick with what we came up with. He breathed deeply a few times before Akadori reached over and put a shaky hand on his cousin's back in a show of support, which seemed to help steady the skinny teenager. Kurai, Akadori, and I all grew up together, and when my dad died, I learned to rely on them like they were my own brothers. To lose him like I lost my father is just... it sucks. Part of me wants to blame heroism for his fate, but I know that's not fair to you guys, nor would it be what he wanted. My family and I know that if we're going to be able to cope with what's happened, we have to remember that he did what he did for us, his loved ones. He glanced at Akadori again before he went on to say, On behalf of Kurai's brother, I'll read a statement that he prepared. My brother and I were both cursed with our powers in a way, but that never stopped us from trying to beat the odds. Mine risked destroying my body as a cost of advancing my mind beyond that of normal human limitations, and his risked destroying his mind as the cost of giving his body the power to protect those near him. By all accounts, we both should have given in to our fates long ago, but neither of us were raised to do so. I gave up my health in exchange for being able to make my brother well so that he could accomplish his dream of becoming a hero, and that's exactly what he did. I wondered if I should regret doing what I did to help heal his broken body, because maybe if I hadn't, he would have had to quit the fight much earlier, and then maybe he'd still be alive. But the truth is that it doesn't matter what either of us should have done, because neither of us could have done anything less than we did, especially since it was in his nature to act with the welfare of those around him in mind, to behave as a true hero. So even though I find myself bereft of both my brother and father, I find myself without regret because I helped my brother to achieve his goal of being a hero. A dream that he fought tooth and nail to make a reality, even at the cost of his own life. Even if people call him foolish for seemingly throwing his life away, I want to make sure that people know that Kai wasn't just a hero. He was my hero. Shuken paused, wiped at his eyes, and then looked up from the paper to say, "Thank you all for coming out to honor my cousin today. I'm glad to know that he has so many peers who respected him after what happened with his dad, so just thank you." Stepping away from the podium, he then bowed to the crowd, his mother patting his back as he straightened his spine and wiped at his eyes before moving to select a flower to place on Kodai's coffin, Akuduri and his mother following him close behind. As this was happening, Izuku felt an extra pang of sadness in his heart, seeing that Kodai and Akuduri's mother was unable to attend the event. I know she's a criminal who has to serve time, but it seems unfair on some level that she can't be here to gain the closure that a funeral is supposed to bring, he thought morosely. Worse still, her jail sentence wouldn't expire until she was in her 90s, so the grim truth was that she might not even ever see her son's grave. She committed the crime she did for the sake of the same son who died. That's just all kinds of cruel. Last to speak was Mina, having been invited to do so by Kodai's family, who had insisted that their engagement, unofficial though it may have been, made her as close to him as any of them, if not closer. So it was that the girl moved up the stairs, her eyes just as dead as they had been since she awoken to see her boyfriend's ruined body in the hospital of Nabu Island. The auditorium was especially quiet now, as most of the students wondered who was this peer of theirs, while a small number familiar with Kodai and Mina's relationship waited with bated breath to see what she would say about her dearly departed. Once she had taken her place at the podium, she blinked her hollow eyes a couple of times, surprising her friends as the light began to return to them. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mina Ashido. She began in a stronger tone than the others would have expected her to have. I was Kodai's girlfriend pretty much since the start of the year, and I loved him very much. We met at the testing grounds on the day of the entrance exam, and when I found out that we were in the same class together, it seemed like the start of a great school year. A weak little grin worked its way onto her face as she continued to say, "In some ways, I was right, because my time with Kodai was the best in my life. Even though we had a bunch of crazy stuff happen, like with the USJ attack and the summer camp, I was able to be happy because he would always be there to make me smile as soon as the dust settled. He wasn't perfect, neither is a hero nor is a person, but I like to think that he was perfect for me. He once told me that to him, falling in love, it wasn't about finding out how compatible your strengths are, but also about learning how to complement one another's flaws so that you can become better people together. I know that I have a lot of flaws, and now that he's not here to help me overcome them, I just hope that I could still be someone he'd be proud of." Tears were building up in the corners of her eyes, but she kept going, seemingly determined not to break down until she had finished paying tribute to the dead. One of the things I loved most about him was that he always had time for his friends, no matter how busy his own day had been. Whether it was a crappy homework assignment that we needed help with, a training partner after a hard day of work had already gone by, or we wanted to do something goofy, he made time for us. Even on days when he was subjected to shame and ridicule because of other people's fear of him, he was there for us. I'm ashamed to say that I didn't always appreciate his resolve to never strike back at the people who wronged him in the way they did, and I know it's too late, but I'm really proud of him for being the hero he was. Her shoulders started to shake while her voice started to crumble, so All Might quickly moved over and put his hand in front of the microphone while speaking softly to his student, who shook her head in the negative while she wiped away her eyes. Once her teacher had moved back, she sniffed and said, "Sorry, I'm almost done." After taking a few calming breaths, she managed to say, "I'll miss Kurai for the rest of my life, but I'm glad that I got to know him at all, because much less be with him for as long as I was. Kurai was the best friend I ever had, the best hero to ever walk these halls, and no one will ever convince me otherwise." Finished speaking, Mina left to place the bouquet that Yairozu had given her on Kurai's coffin, before bowing her head over his chest and letting her tears fall into the fabric of his hero costume. Normally, students were buried in a formal outfit, but since Kurai had died in the line of duty, he had been afforded the honor of being laid to rest in his hero gear, which had been repaired for the occasion. Seeing him with snowy hair was still unnerving for those who had been close to him, as it made him appear even more like a shade of himself when he was alive, and the thought of it tore at Mina's heart all over again. His sword was beneath his hand on his chest, as befitting a warrior slain in battle, and his wounds had all been cleaned and sealed. Thanks to that, and the preservation quirks that had been applied to his body, he looked as though he were sleeping, but there was no rising and falling from his chest, and no blood suffused his cheeks. "Goodbye, Kurai," Mina whispered as she forced herself to pull away from the coffin, unable to stop the tears from falling down her cheeks. Someone, she wasn't sure who, led her away and into a warm embrace while she started to cry in earnest. The principal was then telling students that those who wished to do so could come by the coffin to pay their last respects, but she just tuned it out as background noise. She had forced herself to speak in order for her Kurai to be remembered as he should be, and it was all she could do to suffer in the grayed world that had replaced the bright colors that had once surrounded her. An alarm blared throughout the gym, startling everyone in it as the defense system alerted them to a level 3 security breach, which meant only one thing. "Someone's broken onto the campus," Ectoplasm shouted from further up the stage, confirming their fears. "Cameras have them headed this way from the south." "All students, save for those with hero licenses, evacuate to your dorms," Aizawa ordered into the microphone. "Those of you with them, come with us and prepare to fight." "Yes, sir!" The gym quickly descended into chaos after that. The Hero Corps students from all 3 years made for the back exit of the gymnasium in order to avoid the throng of general education, support course, and business class students trying to get out of the larger main structure. Those who had been crying recently did their best to wipe away their tears as adrenaline pumped through their bodies, erasing their need for sorrow and replacing it with a desire to defend their home and peers. As soon as they cleared the exits, Bakugo snarled, Whoever decided to attack picked the wrong day to mess with us!" His hands were already sparking while Izuku led the charge alongside him and Ida, energon flowing into his body to give him superhuman speed and strength. He wasn't as good at controlling it as One for All, but the fact that he didn't risk breaking his bones every time he overexerted himself helped him to be just a little more confident in his use of it. "I just wish that I'd had more time to practice with it before something like this happened," he thought as his eyes scanned the snow-covered campus, on the watch for anything or anyone who might come out of the trees. There! Izuku was surprised to see Amajiki running a little behind him, pointing at the tree line to the southeast, where something was disturbing the greenery, enough for snow to be thrown off the frozen branches. Before anyone could say anything else, the gathering of heroes skidded to a stop as something large came flying out of the foliage and crashed into the snow not 10 feet in front of them. The something turned out to be Hound Dog, unconscious and severely bruised, though from what yet was not clear. "Get ready, people," Snipe said as he loaded his guns and aimed at the trees. Behind him, and the other teachers who had followed, the hero students of UA prepared to go to work, the tension in the air growing thicker by the second. The tension was broken when a slightly built girl appeared approximately the age of the younger students walked out of the trees, her hands raised in a gesture of surrender. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," she called across the ground that separated her from the heroes. She was clothed in a somewhat short blue dress with black tights, and dark green sleeves separate from the azure fabric. A tattered scarlet cape that rippled in the brisk winter wind completed the outfit. "Is that what you told Hound Dog?" Aizawa said as he prepared his capture scarf. His eyes weren't glowing, which meant that he had yet to nullify this intruder's quirk, but everyone knew he could do it in an instant if he desired. "He didn't give me a chance to talk," the girl replied calmly as the cold breeze stirred her raven tresses. "I need to get to the funeral you're holding." "I don't think so," Aizawa replied flatly. "You're trespassing on private property and you've assaulted a member of our staff. Stand down before we add resisting arrest to the charges we'll be pressing." The girl sighed before muttering, "It's worth a shot." Her body then erupted into a blur of motion, too fast for the heroes to see what she was doing, but Aizawa wasn't about to wait and find out. He engaged his power, nullifying the girl's quirk that seemed to enhance her speed, but then let out a grunt of pain as his head jerked back, and he fell over in the snow, clutching at his face, where the remnants of a hard-packed snowball could be seen. "Did she just... Don't let her get away!" Snipe shouted as he opened fire with his revolvers, aiming to cripple the girl's legs. Apparently, she had hurled a snowball at Aizawa's face in the instant before he had nullified her powers, which cut off his vision and made him incapable of stopping her with his usual methods. Since he wasn't getting up, it also seemed that she had hit him hard enough to knock him out, which was worrying for a number of reasons. The girl's eyes narrowed before she disappeared into a red streak that evaded all the man's bullets before heading right for the gathering of heroes. "Sorry about this," she called just before another crimson blur smashed into her, halting her progress amid a storm of scarlet flower petals. "You're not the only one with speed here," Ruby said as she managed to twist the other girl's arm behind her back. "Give it up. It's over 100 to 1. "Not quite," the intruder grunted as she glanced over her shoulder. "And no offense, but numbers don't win a fight." Without another word, she flexed her lean muscles and overpowered Ruby's grip, slipping free before spinning all the way around and delivering a knockout punch to her jaw, sending her sprawling in the snow. Things only got worse from the heroes from there on. The mysterious girl moved fast to take down the more experienced teachers, even using them like batons to knock out their colleagues and students as she bowled her way through the heroes with seemingly little effort. Seeing that attacking at close range was getting them nowhere, the students spread out and let the long-range fighters go to work. "Tape shot trident! Crucifixion!" Sarah's tape wound itself around the girl, restricting her movement in time for Shiozaki from Class B to ensnare her in a thick tangle of vines that bound her even more tightly and suspended her in the air, leaving her no purchase for her feet to use. "Out of the way, losers!" Bakugo roared as he barreled toward the trap girl in a whirlwind of fire and smoke. "Howitzer!" He didn't get the chance to strike. The girl's mouth set into a thin line before a violent blast of light and wind's pressure tore the bindings to shreds, and she shot toward Bakugo in the air, her fists drawn back. "What the... Ha!" The girl shouted as she slugged him in the stomach, killing his momentum and giving her time to kick him into a group of second-year students, knocking the lot of them out with a violent impact. She landed and found herself face-to-face with Amajiki and Hado, both of them looking determined as they began to exercise their powers. "You made a mistake coming today of all days," Amajiki said as he transformed his hands into hard shells while wings sprouted from his back. "Yeah, why'd you have to ruin today, huh?" Hado asked as she started to float up in the air. "It's already sad, why make it worse? And who are you?" "You could say that I'm here to pay my respects to the dead," the girl answered as white energy crackled along her fists. "And even if I told you who I was, you wouldn't believe it. Not yet, anyhow. I'm making it to Kai today, and no one, not even the big three of UA, are going to stop me."
I hate to see you go. Without you, I just don't know. When the day comes when I fall, you won't be there to catch me, no. Try, but I can't seem to. Nobody could replace you. At a loss for words as the memories flood my mind. Took the only chance to bring me back again. Like family, so much more than a friend. Miss you 3,000. Miss you 3,000.
All right, so I promised that things would get exciting again in this chapter, and I would think that I think I delivered on that.
Yeah, it was a little of a slow start, but the end definitely packed a punch. So
I mean, I threw in that fun little bit in the middle of it too, because they do the paying the respects thing on the island, and then there's that bit where our caped friend beats the ever living daylights out of some would be rapists.
Yeah, kept us going.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. That was kind of a fun scene to write.
Yeah, like I like that there was a memorial on the island itself that was a little more intimate.
Yeah.
Before they went back to
to UA.
UA.
Oh yeah, because like the people at UA, it's like a classmate died. That's a big deal. And certainly some of them admired him, but he didn't do for them what he did for the Islanders. So I was like, I almost just did the chapter straight to the funeral at UA, but I was like, nah, I wouldn't feel right to just like leave things with the Nauvoo Islanders.
I think with a formal event too, they're not going to have as much space for people to talk. They're going to try to keep it brief so they can get people moving through.
Yeah.
So having the event at the island kind of allowed for the other classmates to
be able to say their piece.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What'd you think of Deku's, like, while he's like thinking of what to say, and he's like, he's kind of wondering, he's like what's the point of even lying to these people anymore?
Yeah.
It's like, it's all for one for all, they don't matter anymore. It's
nice that he has that moment, but I'm glad that he, kind of keeps it to himself, because that's the thing, it's not about him. It's about remembering his friend. And so I think it was fitting, and it was typical of Deku to be like, no, I'm not going to make this about me. I'm going to just say what I need to say, and we're going to move on.
My favorite bit to write was Bakugo's.
Yeah.
Because I was like, he grew to respect Kunai enough that he's gonna say something, but again, he has to be very Bakugo about it.
I was surprised that he spoke. I was actually more surprised that Todoroki spoke.
Yeah.
I didn't expect him to say much.
I went back and forth on that one, but I eventually I was like, yeah, I think he would say something.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it worked, and it was for me. Yeah, it was surprising that both of them spoke, but I don't know why. For some reason, I was just more surprised about Todoroki.
Yeah.
Because he talks to people like in private.
Yeah.
Periodically in short bursts.
Yeah.
But it's not often that he speaks in front of everyone.
I mean, Blake does the same thing.
Yeah.
She's normally doesn't talk about like that, like, so kind of that helps to illustrate like how much the two of them respected him.
Yeah.
And it was, I had to go back and reread a bunch of stuff like from earlier on in the story, because I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to contradict myself with anything that the people I had chosen to speak with anything that they said.
Okay.
So like I kind of had to go back. I had to keep track of what his story was with Yaoyorozu, how things went with Ida, how things went with Todoroki, so on and so forth.
Some of those things. I was like, oh, okay, that's a nice little refresher there.
Yeah.
Thanks. Give me a little refresher on why I'm feeling the feels. Gosh. And then
and then we have
our little transitional moment with our mystery girl being all scary superhero vigilante.
Yep. I wonder what people are gonna make of that name that she used at the end there.
That one took me by surprise. Like I even even though I know why, I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. To me, it made sense.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense. No, the Lemillion name is...
That'll make more sense in a few chapters, I want to say. Yeah. Because we're getting closer to figuring out what this girl's deal is.
Yeah. So then we move into like the more formal funeral.
We had like before that we have like them like being at their dorms and like just seeing him numb. Just seeing him not being there.
Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah.
And then, we forget it's like almost Christmas at this point. So it's like, oh,
it's
great.
Like, great.
This is great.
Who's going to have a holly jolly Christmas now? Not these guys.
Oh, you're so nice to us. Anyway, then we move into formal funeral. We get to hear,
his teachers more.
And we get the, get to hear from Makarui via Shuken.
Yeah. I thought about him like maybe just playing it out of the speaker, but having Shuken do it made it more personal for me.
I think so.
I thought that was the right direction to go.
Yeah.
We'll see what people think of that.
Yeah.
I feel like if I had gone straight to this, like Shuken's involvement with this, like this part of the funeral wouldn't have had as much impact if I didn't do the chapter about with him and Akururi like a little while ago. So I feel like that helped to lend to some impact to this scene in particular.
Yeah. And then, of course, Mina was heart-wrenching, as
Yeah.
no one was surprised about that. But that being said, we have...
I
an
almost had the
alarm.
alarms go off while she was speaking.
And I think one of your initial drafts had that, because I was expecting it to go off while she was speaking this last time I heard it. Sorry.
Like I don't honestly I don't remember why I chose to let her finish speaking and then set the alarm off. I had a reason for it, and I really wish I could have told you guys, because I feel like I had a good reason for it, and now I can't remember it. So I'm kind of bummed on myself.
Yeah, so now we have random vigilante attack.
Who
Okay,
just like
what's
wasted all the
happening here?
teachers, and
Yeah.
like
Mostly
wasted the
because
teachers.
they were taken by surprise.
Yeah,
but
yeah, she took him by surprise, but like
Aizawa gets
she
a
took Aizawa, like,
snowball?
she-
What?
she took him out first. This shows this girl's smart. She knows who he is. She knows to take him out first.
So clearly she's done her homework, whoever she is.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was like, I was like, wait, a snowball? Really? And even Aizawa was like, really? Did she just, what? Like,
No, Aizawa got knocked out by the snowball.
oh my god.
It was somebody else who was just like, did she just?
Like, what are you made of, psycho? Yeah.
I remember getting hit. I remember getting hit in the face with a snowball one time. Like it hurt a lot, and like I was walking downhill. Someone hit me with a snowball. I can't remember if it was one of my brothers or one of the neighbors, but like it hit me, and like it was kind of icy, so my legs went out from under me, and I fell over, and I was, for whatever, like that's what I remembered while I was writing that scene, because like it didn't knock me out, but it definitely didn't feel good either.
Yeah, no, it doesn't feel good getting hit in the face in general, but when it's like an icy snowball, ow.
Like being thrown that fast.
Yeah, no kidding.
We're talking like he got like hit by like a major league fastball.
Poor Dad Zawa.
He's just trying to protect his kids, and then this weird kid out of nowhere puts his lights out.
Yeah, so honestly...
So he's down, the teachers are down, Bakugo's already down.
I'm curious to see people, like, who figures out motivations here. Because, like, for me, it's obvious because I kind of knew already. But I have a feeling...
We have some pretty various theories already going out there.
But I'm
So I'm
curious
interested to see how those theories tie
I
into,
have a
like how that ties into this chapter.
Yeah, I have a feeling some people are going to figure out the motive. I'm curious to see if anyone figures out the identity before it's revealed.
I get the feeling that somebody might, but I don't know. I like...
We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah.
That being
I mean,
said-
we'll be getting the chapter after this one pretty soon, because I'm going to be releasing 2 chapters in 1 week to try and keep up with the anniversary and the regular schedule.
So that'll be interesting. So anyway, that being
Y'all
said,
won't have to wait for answers for too much longer.
Thanks for tuning in.
And thanks for all the reviews, guys. We really appreciate it. I guess we'll see you guys here in a few days, and I hope it's a plus ultra few days for you guys until then. And hopefully my tub doesn't break again.
Your what?
My tub.
Tub. I thought you said top, and I was like, so many pictures went through my head just now. I'm like, men don't call their shirts tops, though. I'm so confused.
I mean, there's tank tops.
Yeah, that's still women.
Okay. I don't know.
Women call them that.
We better go before we drive
Okay,
these people
I'm
crazy.
done. Bye, guys.
Bye.